Welcome, everyone. My name is DJ, and today we're going to be talking about Anapanasati and the foundations to remember. So, the foundations of mindfulness. And this is specifically the second foundation out of the four foundations. So, the second foundation is the feelings. And before I move into it within the context of mindfulness with in or out breathing, or inhale, exhale, remembrance, as I like to put it, Anapanasati in the Pali, I'm going to touch on what the feelings are within the context of the Buddha Dhamma. So the feelings, there's actually three different feeling tones. There is, I like it. There is, I don't know whether I like it or dislike it. And I don't like it, right? So disliking. So these are the different feeling tones, right? So it's really simple because there's just three. And so what we're working on developing here now within the context of Anapanasati and the 16 different items is developing and working with and being aware of a satisfaction or a pleasant feeling, right? So a pleasant feeling or a feeling of we like it, that is not born from sensual pleasures. So, it's born from us being in seclusion, right? So we can cultivate this in seclusion where we're not relying on anything, And then if we get out into the world, if we're waiting in line somewhere, we can have access to this joy and to this satisfaction. Now, these are more I would consider to be emotions, but these emotions have pleasant feelings with them, right? So this the joy and the satisfaction, right, or the ease, right, they have they're pleasant, right? I would consider them to be pleasant emotions. And so that's what we're cultivating with this, right? And so we have access to these. And we don't need to go to external things in order to be able to be joyful and at ease. So this is a really helpful skill also to develop because it allows us to overcome addictions as well, right? So this is why it's really helpful to work in with these qualities. And actually, so I'm going to start off by talking about the fifth item. So successful joy is how I will put it. It's piti. So in the Pali, it's piti. And so this is the fifth item. And actually, as in the sutta, it says, and I'm paraphrasing here, but, I shall breathe in long, experiencing rapture. I shall breathe out long, experiencing rapture. So that's close to the Bhikkhu Bodhi translation. And again, rapture might be a little bit of an intense word. It can definitely feel rapturous sometimes. And so I'm not saying that's a cool translation as well. But also joy, right? So joy, a feeling of success also, like we've scored the touchdown, right? So this is kind of that feeling that we're developing here. And it's a pleasant feeling. It's kind of energetic, right? Sometimes people will talk about piti as like tingly sensations throughout the body. And that can definitely be how it sort of shows up as well, or it can be the resultant, right? Like, how do you feel after you've scored the touchdown? And what we're practicing here with Anapanasati, and I believe my friend Scott kind of pointed this out, or perhaps coined this phrase a little bit, was, scoring the cosmic touchdown. That's what we're doing here. Right, is we're scoring the cosmic touchdown when we recognize we can be successful and we can be joyous without relying on anything in this world, right? And so this is a real reliable joy and feeling of success to come back to, and it's pleasant. So we're working on developing that pleasant, that feeling of I like this, right? But it's not bound by anything. So it's really helpful for overcoming our attachments and our addictions. So now I'm going to move on to the sixth item, right? And these all run together, right? And so that is satisfying ease, as I will put it. It's sukha. And if we think about it, dukkha is like dissatisfaction, right? And so that's often translated as suffering, but another way is, dissatisfaction. So satisfaction, sukha, is the inverse of that. When we're free from dissatisfaction, pleasant feelings will arise. And so that's the sukha that comes from the absence of dissatisfaction. Right? And so it can be this satisfying, and there's also an easiness to it, right? There can be an easiness to it. Safety and security as well with sukha, right? So these are all things that we can work in. And even with the thoughts, right? So kind of going back up to, the 8th and the 9th, the 9th and the 10th item, right? So becoming aware and gladdening the mind even, and also working on with that noble right effort, we can change the thoughts to kind of help bring about this feeling of sukha, of, hey, this is satisfying enough right now. Just being aware of our breath, this is satisfying enough right now. And we work with that with the body as well, as we breathe in, with that step 4 of relaxing the body, or the 4th item. We relax the body of breath as we breathe in and we breathe out, right? And again, when we're free from hindrances, when we're free from the unwholesome, this sukha will just naturally come about. It's the resultant of that. So this is working with that sukha. And again, this Dhammarato, my wise friend, he talks about it as a pincer movement. So this is why I wanted to kind of go in the order of first with the mind, then down to the body, and now with the feelings, because the mind and the body will kind of pincer and come towards the feelings if we're kind of familiar with that sort of movement, right? We're kind of attacking it from both sides, if you will. And we're coming into the feelings here, because when the body is nice and relaxed, and when the mind is gladdened up, right, and it's unified, and it's free from the unwholesome, then these pleasant feelings, and again, when we really develop this and cultivate this, it really does blow away any worldly pleasure. Now, that's not something to be afraid of, because we can use this to have this pleasure, to have this sense of fulfillment, so then we can proceed in the world and be able to do things. Again, I like to come back to that example of, you're waiting in line at a bank, right? And so you can come and tap into this. I've actually had this, funny enough, jury duty selection, right? Things like that. And I would be up there and I would be waiting in a courtroom, and that could bring up all those things, but I was practicing this, and the amount of stress and dissatisfaction that was reduced, but not only that, a sense of fulfillment. And again, it's coming back and being aware still of your surroundings, but you can develop, and come back to this successful joy with the piti, feeling successful. And part of the reasons we can feel successful is because we can recognize this satisfaction right here, right now, and it's an easy satisfaction. It's not a hard satisfaction to arrive at. And that is why it is so pristine. So that's the piti and the sukha. And those are two factors as well. So if people have heard about jhana, and I will kind of refer to it as a wholesome state of mind, right, in kind of English. The piti and the sukha are two factors of that, right? So this is where we're working this in. And so the Anapanasati practice, or inhale, exhale, remembrance, is actually a way to work with this jhana and develop it in the first wholesome state. And the first wholesome state is enough. So we have piti and sukha, and then we have the applied and sustained thought. So these one wholesome thought after another. And then we're also free from dissatisfaction. And another one we can add, it's not necessarily in all the suttas, is the relaxation. And so we're doing that with the 4th item, with the body. So that's the piti and that's the sukha. And we can play around with these and really work with them. And it's a joy to develop, because we're developing joy itself. And we're developing satisfaction itself that's not born from sensual pleasures. So it's reliable. Now, we're going to move on to the 7th item here, and that's becoming aware of, I put it down here as memory pile, emotional habits, mental formations, or sankhara. So sankhara is kind of an interesting one, And I have kind of a couple of different examples here, but it's kind of like your store of memories. It's just like a piling on of, all of our past memories coming in. So it kind of plays here, though, specifically with the emotional habits, right? So we have an idea of what satisfaction is, and it becomes muddy. And so, in a sense, because we start to think about last Tuesday's satisfaction or this specific event, it gets wrapped up in these things, right? So we become aware of those things that are kind of obstructing that sense of satisfaction here and now that's available, right? Also, another way is some of the hindrances can be viewed as these sankharas as well. So, sensual desire, ill will, restlessness and remorse. So these are all things to become aware of. And then in the 8th one, we're calming them. So we become aware. If we become angry, right, we become aware of that with the 7th item, and then we can relax it, right, with that 8th. We're relaxing it. And so, all these things really roll together, but this can be really helpful. And I really, in terms of relaxing some of the more persistent sankharas, right, like anger, or, really any of them, if it's like worry, anything that's kind of obstructing, the joyful satisfaction, then it kind of comes to turning around and gladdening the mind or putting in the right effort. Thich Nhat Hanh has a really good thing where he says, I'm going to take good care of you. So I'm going to take good care of you, worry. And that's already gladdening. It's already stepping on top of it. Another really helpful one is the Buddha says, aha, I see you, Mara. So I believe, talked about steps or these spotters in the one on the mind, right? So the video on the mind. But here, too, it's that helpful thing. And it's helpful to see how these things, it's kind of a spiral and they all work together, right? So, but this is kind of, we can focus a little bit maybe for a breath, like the main theme or focus is becoming aware of these piles of memory, and then on another one could be calming them, right? So now with that 8th step, that calming aspect too, we can sometimes even calm the ideas that we have about satisfaction and joy, right? We can just calm it completely, right? And really calm down those aspects so we can just come to be content with what is, right? And we're not even reifying or having an expectation of what content is. So we're just coming back to it is what it is. So there can be that aspect of that too, right? But again, these are things to come into and explore. And in the sutta, it talks, with each one of these different items, it will have like, I will inhale long, or I shall inhale long. There's actually an intent behind this, which is interesting. Or in the suttas, it starts with that, I will, and then breathing in, and then experiencing joy. I will, breathe out, experiencing joy. I will breathe in, experiencing ease. I will breathe out, experiencing ease. I shall breathe in, experiencing mental formations. I shall breathe out, experiencing mental formations. I shall breathe in, tranquilizing mental formations, and I shall breathe out, tranquilizing mental formations. And again, you don't have to use that exact language. I sometimes like to play with it like a mantra. And actually, when I'm playing with it like that, when I'm using I will or I shall, that's when I have the intention to breathe. So this might be a little bit more of an advanced thing, but it is a nice practice, because when we have that intention to breathe, we'll go and generate the thought of, along with it, I will, and then follow the breath as we're breathing in and experiencing that joy. And again, if the mind wanders away, well, then we use one of those spotter phrases like, aha, glad to see you, right? Because we can see it. We recognize we're not it. We're not the anger. We're not the sankhara. I mean, we're not even the satisfaction. We're not even the joy. We're none of these things, right? But it's still beneficial to play with and generate this pleasant abiding here and now, right? And this is a wholesome abiding. So this is working with the feelings. And so I'm glad, I can share this with you. And if you got something out of it, that's wonderful. Or lost something, because it's a subtractive process. It's about losing the greed, the hatred, and the delusion, so we can come back and experience this joyful success, and even going beyond any conception of what that is. So I would like to now kind of wrap it up, but I would like to thank again Dom Morato, an excellent, wise friend. A lot of the stuff I'm getting is from him as well, and then through practicing, what he kind of teaches, and sharing it in sort of, this style, right? But check out his videos on Dhammarato Dhamma if you want to see some like one-on-one with students. It's like really good stuff. So if you're interested in the practice of Anapanasati, mindfulness with in or out breathing, then check that out. Also check out the Open Sangha Foundation, because if you want to get more involved with the community, that's a great place to go. They're just starting to launch the site now, but it's really starting to come up. It's like a whole social networking thing for people who are interested in Buddha Dhamma. And then finally, too, we've got the Dhamma Friends Discord server. So if you want to get in contact with me, I'm on there. We do Saturday night. It's Eastern Standard Time, 7 p.m. currently. We do pretty much meetups, right? So I kind of host them, but it's a free form, so we can come in, ask questions, share our practice with each other, and talk about the Dhamma. So it's a great place, and we've got lots of resources in the chats. There's even like wholesome chat or a wholesome thought place, so you can go there and check that out. So it's really cool in that regard. And yeah, also too, if you want to get in contact with me too, and again, if I have time and we find something, if you want to talk one-on-one about this, like, I'm down. So if you have any questions about inhale, exhale, remembrance, Anapanasati, the Buddha Dhamma, ending dissatisfaction, realizing the end of dissatisfaction here and now, I'm confident that I know the way out. At the very least, that's the extent, but I might be able to help you out with that, and it can be of benefit. And it's a benefit to me too. And just doing these videos is of benefit as well. So thank you so much for listening. And, may you, recognize this peace here and now. All right. Until next time, peace.